Welcome to episode number 17 with Don Wiegner, CIO of Mariner Finance.
I know it may seem cliche a bit, but I think that focusing on the staff, building the right team, and setting the bar and developing that team so they can achieve those goals for each level that you set is really the key. I mean, and it's interesting. You kind of know that when you go, become a manager and you go through some of the training, and then if you go for formal education, especially through the MBA programs, you hear a lot about staff development and building the right people. And it's not that you don't know it, but it's once you see it and the mechanics come together, you realize just how critical that is, regardless of what the slide deck says the agenda is or the board says the goals are. You can't do it yourself, and you need the right team that you can rely on and believe in to execute.
Hello, and you are listening to Bill Murphy's Red Zone podcast. If you are listening for the first time, I interview leaders who inspire me in the areas of hardcore IT security, IT business leadership, innovation, creativity, entrepreneurship, and fearless living principles. Welcome to the show. Welcome back to the program, everybody. This is Bill Murphy, your host of the Red Zone podcast. Today, I interviewed Don Wiegner, who's the CIO of Mariner Finance, and we talk about how to get hard things done. Recently, Don migrated 10 data centers into 6 in less than a year across 3 continents. Everyone told him he couldn't do this, including vendors. His team migrated 3,000 servers, 170 customer-facing applications with 0 downtime and 0 customer impact. There were 200 people involved in the project of both business and IT. I am going to focus a little bit on the project with him, but more importantly, what did he learn and what can he share with you? The couple concepts. One is how to make leapfrog steps. Be focused on this as we go through this discussion. Making leapfrog steps versus incremental progress is a huge way to think that is different than we're normally conditioned. This is a profession of linear thinkers for the most part in the CIO role. It's linear step by step. Well, how do we think laterally? How do we think in a way that leapfrogs steps? How do we think in a way outside of our current conditioning? And this is what he worked with his team on, both himself and his team. How do we potentially accomplish the impossible? How do we accomplish something that's insurmountable? And I've been talking to more and more CIOs about this and listening to their projects that they have accomplished. And many of them are transformational. Many of them are seemingly impossible at times. And I think these are crowning moments. These are defining parts of people's careers. And we have to seize them when they come up because it does take a different way of thinking. It takes a yes thinking, and it takes a type of thinking that says, what are the reasons how we can do this, not why we can't do it. So Donald and I dive into a lot of the pieces of this related to his team. He gives very specific examples about how he built his team, how he built an A team, how he helped his team overcome doom and gloom and overly rosy thinking, how he laid out path for skill set building from his organization. So this is a packed episode, and I hope everyone enjoys it and takes lots of notes. So let's jump right in. So you say it's cliche, and maybe it is, but why did you come to that firm belief? Like, what has happened that you've come to that belief that's absolutely your model moving forward as a CIO?
I mean, you always talk about staff development. I guess if I look at my early years, staff development was, of course, getting people's skills better, helping us be more efficient or address voids in the skill set. Also, of course, helps with retention and morale. People feel that you're investing in them. But I think the moments that really click that have kind of solidified that, for me at least, has been insurmountable goals or obstacles that get in the way. And you see people rise to the occasion and stretch themselves or step forward and push themselves to levels that they themselves didn't even really think that they could achieve. And they surprise you. And it's amazing to me that when you get the right personalities, and those personalities on your team know they have your support, believe in the direction that you're giving, as far as the overall goals, and are inspired to move forward and kind of push themselves for the organization, for you, for themselves. In the end, people surprise you more often than not. And it's been really gratifying to see, especially in my time here at CEB, as well as my previous position at Wilmington Trust, to see team members who time and time again will look at a challenge, and although, no one's perfect, in the beginning they share some concerns, maybe some anxiety about it, but when you strategize and talk through it as a team and what the reason is for it and how you're going to overcome it, it's impressive to me how those individuals time and time again step forward and not only battle through and achieve those goals, but do so in a way where not only the organization, but they themselves are in a much better place on the other side of completing that activity. So if I look at the past year with data centers here, our team members did 6 data center migrations in less than 8 months to new data centers, new infrastructure, new platforms. Over almost 3,000 servers got moved, over 170 production customer-facing applications. We had 0 customer impact, which is amazing to me. And now the team members are far more confident, technically capable, and looking for the next challenge for us to overcome, not being timid or afraid. And it helped build morale, helped build confidence. And my team is in a far better place now due to their own efforts and success. Nothing that I did. We just helped strategize and set direction. It's more what they achieved themselves has now put the overall team and the individuals in a much better place.
So obviously at CEB, you have the benefit of not only having a good-sized company. Was it over 3,000 people, or how many total?
The company has almost 4,400 staff members around the globe.
Around the globe, right. And then also you're an analyst organization, or you have elements of the company that are providing advice to companies and brands around the world. Is that correct?
Correct.
So do you ever leverage the information that your firm produces for leaders and within companies? Do you ever utilize it for yourself, or is this something that you brought to the table from your previous experience?
I think it's a combination. I mean, we do try to practice what we preach. I mean, when you're a best practices company and you're asking your membership to listen to what you're saying because it makes them a better organization, you certainly want to follow those practices. We do spend a lot of research on what we call high-performance employees, or HYPO. But that being said, I mean, we go through that training, we develop the managers to a degree, but a lot of it is about the team enablement, talking through the team, treating them as advisors, giving them avenues, because people think about things differently. So giving them multiple avenues to contribute ideas, input, rewarding reasonable risks, meaning they're willing to take a chance that doesn't necessarily jeopardize the overall safety of the company as a whole, but that helps push that bar, especially in the innovation front. Challenging conventional thinking. So, we have a lot of thought around the idea of just because we've always done it that way, it doesn't necessarily mean it's the right way to go forward. So having team members, either through external expertise or background, or just through their own intellectual curiosity, have identified better ways to solve a problem or address an outcome. So enabling staff to provide that type of input and having that environment has been critical to foster that type of success.
So how would a CIO, existing CIO or a new one, how would they learn some of so you mentioned developing high-performance employees, team enablement, giving your team members multiple avenues, rewarding reasonable risk, and challenging conventional thinking. Like, where would someone learn about this information? So they're mid-career, no one's going off to school per se. How can they learn mid-career?
Sure. So I think there's a couple things I'd recommend. One is kind of an honest assessment a lot of times we're in the habit of going in organizations and you normally have one of two approaches. It's either doom and gloom and there's a ton of things to fix, or it's overly rosy, meaning you're optimistic and positive and you're not necessarily honest with yourself and or your team members about where we are, what we need to do, and what it's going to take us to get there. So I think laying out that path and having interval steps of what are the skills and capabilities and maturity levels you need at your milestones, doing an honest assessment of your team. You may have some really nice people on your team that are outstanding human beings. They're just not the right fit for where you're taking the organization. And that could be literally just having a conversation with them, letting them know where you see some of the weaknesses or development areas. And you'll be surprised that some team members, they just didn't realize it or they didn't understand that's the direction that we needed to go, and they'll rise to the occasion either through self-training or company-assisted training and so forth. Other individuals will realize that the direction that you're going in is maybe not where they want to be. And that's okay. And that's one of the things you got to get your arms around. The idea is you want to build a team of people who want to be there, who want to support the direction that you're going in, and can leapfrog you forward. They're going to propel you forward from where you are today. And then as you recruit, you do the same thing. You are recruiting to fill skills gaps of your current needs, but you really need to look at those team members or individuals who are going to leapfrog you forward. They're giving you a boost that you wouldn't normally get organically. So when you bring them in and you combine them with your existing team, your holistic team is now a better team than it was before. And then in parallel, you want to make sure those team members are not discouraged and they want to stay with you because you're building, your A team. So in doing so, you have to figure out how you're going to develop a relationship, communications channel, and overall, the most important, a trust with your team members so that they believe in what the goals are, they support what the goals are, they feel they can voice their opinions, they feel that they can help steer the ship and guide you on the right path to achieve those goals.
So what mistake do you feel that is the easiest to fall into that you would counsel someone who wants to go down this path? And what's an easy mistake to fall into if you're not aware?
Easy mistake to fall into is getting in a comfort zone. I think there are the leaders are normally, by the time you get to be either a senior leader or a CIO, you've gone through, in management and had to talk to team members about what their development areas are. I think one of the things that doesn't get recognized easy or isn't addressed necessarily is a lot of your line managers used to be technicians or used to be engineers or developers, and they're now been put into management roles, but they're not necessarily comfortable with that honest approach with their team members. It doesn't mean they have to beat their team members down. You definitely want to highlight what their strengths are and figure out how to leverage each team member's strengths. But it's also very fair to have a holistic feedback approach with your team members, as well as offering to assist them or providing them recommendations on way to address some of those development areas. But what often gets missed is that line managers are not comfortable doing that. It's not natural in most cases for them. So you as the senior leader and your management team need to figure out how are you going to develop and foster your line management team to challenge and identify your team members, that the weakness and development areas that they can improve along the way.
So really developing and fostering those line managers is something that develops that holistic feedback loop between you and the folks that are really helping to pull off this particular objective that you may have or group of objectives.
Exactly. I mean, the fact is you're not going to do it yourself, right? So you need the team to do it. Well, in order for the day-to-day to move forward and the goals, the tasks themselves to get done, you need your line manager. You need to trust in them. You need to know they're going to do the right thing, that they're going to push to get things done, and they're going to raise concerns and risks when they arise, as well as recommendations for how to resolve them. So you definitely need a strong staff team overall, but you need a strong management team down to your line managers also. So
do you think that the 80-20 rule applies, or do you think that's a fallacy? What I mean by that is, Do you think that 20% of the employees, you're going to get 80% of the work done? Do you think it's an outdated model where 20% is going to get 80% done? Or do you feel you just need to believe in the 80% and let the 20% go?
I think you got to build off the majority. I mean, the fact is, I know from personal experience back when I was an engineer, you always say you have like your A team, and that's that 20%. They historically may have done the lion's share of your work. The problem is if that's your mantra and that's what you have in reality in your teams, one, those seasoned team members are getting burned out and less productive over time. And two, those individuals, you're not going to achieve broad transformation, major change initiatives, or complex technology goals if you're only banking on your 20%. You have to build your team to be an engine that works well, and there's many parts to an engine. And as you know, if parts of the engine start to fail or falter, it impacts the performance of the whole engine. Same thing with your team approach. You have to holistically address it. It doesn't mean that you don't have stronger players, because everyone has their role. You have to be cognizant, as well as your management team, of what the strengths are of each of those team members and play to those strengths. If team members don't have the proper strengths to achieve the goals or sustain the ongoing demands for where you're going towards, much like an engine, you're going to have to replace a part. And that part may get replaced with a better part. That's the overall goal. But, it's that honest dialogue. Like I said, it's not meant to be harsh. It's just being holistic about the approach and being open. Because you're open, it doesn't come across to your team member like you're hiding anything. It gives them an opportunity to address it or determine that that's just not something they want to invest their time and effort in. And that may come to an outcome where they find another opportunity with another company, and then you're able to backfill that role with someone who does want to push that envelope and address that need.
What about a CIO who needs to do more reporting and more communicating with the CEO and the board at this point? What do you recommend? So there's the need for the CIO to direct the line managers and to develop the teams using the approach you just mentioned. And then there's also, how would you approach it if the needs looking to the CEO and the board level are changing? How would you, as a new CIO coming up, handle that?
So, the board's normally focused on strategic capabilities. So there's goals that they've had with the CEO, normally grow revenue by X, and expand products and margin by Y, and do so in the most cost-effective way so that margins are retained and shareholder value is provided. So, I think a lot of it is much like how CIOs manage communications with the business as well as their teams. What is your audience and what are the things that they care about? So I think your framing of how you're restructuring your team and how you're still supporting the goals, you don't want a message where it is, board and CEO, we're going to be delayed in supporting your goals by X amount of time, because that's just not going to be acceptable to them. As a technologist, a competitive edge, they need you to kind of push that bar, provide that service. Now, how you provide that service may change. In early stages, you may need to leverage some partners to help facilitate filling in some gaps or voids that you have due to the fact that you're still developing your team. But I think a lot of it is rolling it into a roadmap of how you're structuring and rebuilding your team, when you plan on being able to leverage those in-house capabilities, if that's what you're doing with the inside teams, and how that translates to meeting those strategic goals. So bringing it in-house may have financial benefits that improve margin because you're not spending as much on partners at that point. Or it's a core competency where your IP, your intellectual property, is being somewhat maintained by a partner, which puts you in risk. And you decide you're going to move that product or that IP in-house in order to secure your competitive edge in your products overall. So I think a lot of it is the framing, but it's really got to be focused on how your approach is supporting their goals for the organization and making sure that you're a facilitator.
What would you consider yourself world-class at?
That's a hard question. It's always hard to be self-reflecting that way. Let's see. The biggest thing I would cite is a strength for me. I categorize it maybe that way. is I believe that people can always do more than you expect and or they expect. And where I give an example of that is how many times in anyone's career they've heard from their team about how they're overwhelmed, overworked, and so forth. And there's always an irony, because I remember it being this way even as an engineer. When something comes up that's interesting and challenging and exciting, team members find a way to get that done, even though they may have a full plate of other activities going on. And it's amazing to see how people will stretch themselves, especially for something that has that energy and enticement, like excitement around it. I think if you can realize that and not abuse it, because it's a balancing act, you don't want to abuse it, but if you can frame your goals in a way and the work efforts towards them in a way where it creates that energy within your team, you'll be surprised. And I think that's, if you were to say, what am I world class? I think at framing things and putting together goals and agendas in a way that make it interesting and get people excited about it so they're willing to step up and support those efforts.
I think that's great. I've always been amazed at what your team's been able to accomplish in a short time frame. As you were mentioning earlier, you can't do it yourself, and you've proven that. So I do appreciate your insight there, because I think a lot of the folks listening need to be reminded of that. I know I do myself. Well, I do appreciate you for sharing your time with us, Donald, that regarding the building high-performance teams and what you consider is important for managers to how to approach their teams, and laying out a path and laying out a roadmap and making the goals exciting, and making the goals link that to the ironic situation that people they don't feel overworked when they're excited and passionate about the goals that are the targets and the goals that are laid out before them.
Yeah, it's a great space to be in. I mean, I can't be more proud than I am already with the team here at CEB. I'm going to miss them greatly as I move on to my new CIO role. But it's amazing to me, how the team helps you develop and helps you build. And I definitely feel that I am in a much better place and a much better leader and manager having the relationships and experiences I've had with my team members here. They've helped me grow and develop a lot.
Well, I appreciate your time and sharing your expertise with us. I had been wanting to connect with you about this so that we could share your success and your philosophy with the wider CIO community. So thanks, Donald.
Thanks.
So there you have it, everybody. That was Donald Wiegner. I hope you enjoyed the program. I really enjoyed talking to Don because he's been there and done that. I think it's important when you're modeling people and getting mentorship, even if that's coming in an audio format, that you learn from the best, that you learn from people who have accomplished something meaningful. So as you're driving to work, you're listening, you're a fly on the wall to someone else's success patterns. In addition, I want to say thank you to our sponsor, Red Zone Technologies. If you're looking for hardcore security experts, if you're looking for a way to balance out your IT security portfolio, not from a theory point of view or from an academic point of view, but from an actual hardcore IT security perspective, that's what Red Zone Technologies does. We work in making sure your programs are balanced across an entire security portfolio and accurate and valid from a real security perspective. Yes, we do care about compliance. We do care about you passing your compliance audits, but we actually want to make sure you're actually secure, because there's been a lot of companies that are being breached who are passing their compliance audits, but are actually being breached as well. So why is that? Well, that is because that compliance security is not the same as real security. So if you want further information about Red Zone Technologies, please go to redzonetech.net, or you can email me at billm@redzonetech.net, billm@redzonetech.net, or you can call our office at 410-897-9494, 410-897-9494. Thank you, and see you on the next program. So there you have it. This wraps another episode of Bill Murphy's Red Zone podcast. To get all the relevant show notes, please go to our blog at www.redzonetech.net/podcast. Additionally, make sure you go to iTunes and leave your comments in iTunes about the show. This helps our show rankings enormously and it helps support the show. Until next time, I appreciate you very much for listening. Thank you. So there you have it. This wraps another episode of Bill Murphy's Red Zone podcast.